15-year-old me was ready to save the world as a medical missionary nurse. Today, I now run a craft shop with a craft camp for adults. And so yes, I quit my nursing career to play with hot glue guns and popsicle sticks just like my parents always wanted. And I totally know what you're picturing as soon as you heard me say the word craft. You're first thinking that this will never apply to you today. And then you're picturing maybe like a fully loaded handmade birdhouse, a kitschy church basement bazaar, your grandma, and this popsicle stick, googly-eyed guy. And while even googly eyes here has a definite important place in our life, people tend to downgrade the idea of an item or an event when they hear the word craft associated with it. But it is not just for kids, and it is not just for your neighbor down the street wood carving a duck for the street fair. Crafting can change the world, and it can be a game changer in your own life as well. And yes, even you driving a Range Rover, wearing a fancy suit and tie, working the 9 to 5, Kevin, my brother-in-law. Sorry, Kevin. So we want to redefine craft for how we're going to use it here today as the act of making or creating. It doesn't have to be something you've mastered after years of practice or education. It doesn't have to even become from Pinterest, and it doesn't have to be justifiable by being able to sell it on Etsy later. It could just be you YouTubing a video of how to make a kokedama moss ball and actually sitting down and doing it. And so the one thing I would love for you to take away today is that I believe you need to DIY, do it yourself, or die. So we're going to cannonball into 3 things on how craft is essential for your life. And first, how it will save your health, how it will help you reclaim your curiosity, and ultimately, how it will help you kick so much ass. And so first, we're going to dive into health. And we want to define it how the World Health Organization does, as the complete state of physical, mental, and social well-being, and not just the absence of disease. So if you had to rate your state of stress this past week on a scale of 0 to 10, with 10 being max blowout stress, who would join me in rating theirs above a 5? Anyone? Yeah? So craft is essential to your health and how it will decrease your stress. Physically, our bodies are in a constant state of stress, and our brains can't tell the difference between an upcoming meeting with the boss or an upcoming bear attack. During the state of stress, we release things like cortisol, which is our stress hormone, and with enough time, it can begin to damage our blood vessels and lead to things like heart disease and stroke. And as a past cardiac nurse, this is especially near and dear to my heart. When you sit down to craft and make things, your body begins to counteract the effects of stress. You could say it's like a special form of therapy. It improves our mood, it decreases our depression, and when we do especially repetitive motions like knitting, weaving, or maybe wood carving, we begin to quiet that fight or flight response that causes us to feel so escalated and crazy with stress. All of this together is what forms a buffer against the negative psychological impact of stress. Now, craft is also essential to your health in how it improves your brain. Some of my favorite studies show that leisure activities like playing board games or reading books or just crafting can reduce mild cognitive impairment in your future by 30 to 50%. They find that the more stimulating your environment is, the more complexity you can build up in your brain, and the more you can afford to lose as you get older. So you could say that doing something as simple as making a concrete bowl or making an adorable little terrarium would be something that your brain thanks yourself for later on in life. Next, craft is essential to reclaiming your curiosity. And it is no secret that as we get older, we start to lose that very curiosity that used to make life feel extra interesting and just propel us to try something new and different. We prioritize our time for only practical things, and we think of it as a luxury when other people are taking time to do a hobby, a class, or maybe sign up for a craft camp. But let me tell you, Steve Jobs attributes a calligraphy course he took at Reed College to being the very thing that led him to develop 10 years later the fonts and the look of the Mac products that we now know. And he had admitted that there was no practical application for his life at that time. He was just curious to try the craft. So as you let yourself get curious, and curious enough to actually try something new with your own hands making it, I guarantee it'll continue that cycle of just wondering what if and trying to do the next thing. You never know when it'll lead to an experience like Steve Jobs, where it'll change the course of a project or something else in your future. Finally, and my favorite, craft is essential to kicking ass, and through two specific ways. The first one is it is proven to increase your self-efficacy, which is how you feel about your own ability to perform certain tasks. A strong sense of this is key to taking on new challenges and overcoming disappointments in life. At our little craft camp, after just 48 hours of people crafting, they will leave and say in their post-survey things like, I left feeling so motivated to go out, oh yeah, and kick some ass. The second way it helps you kick ass is it is proven to also improve your social identity. It is so easy to get stuck in that rut of life, or maybe a sandcastle, of defining yourself as one specific career role or maybe some family role in your life. And at some point, you start to feel like that's maybe all you'll ever be. So at our craft camp, it's really important that we don't just appeal to people who already define themselves as a maker or as a creative. And so we bring about over a couple hundred adults to come, just craft and make things, from those who've never held a hot glue gun or thought they ever would to those who've done it a billion times. And they'll leave saying things like, after camp, I felt like I wasn't just a mom anymore, or I left feeling so much more me. And you guys, it is science that getting crafty and creative will make you better at your job and enjoy life more. So if you need more reason than that, that hopefully covers all your bases. And so we know through science and our craft camp of how it can really impact our lives. But I experienced this far before I ever thought I was going to be this involved with craft. And 9 years ago, while I was still a nurse, I got that dreaded phone call about a family medical emergency that happened. And over the course of the month, I raced to Duluth, Minnesota as my dad underwent a variety of brain surgeries and eventually did go into recovery. And as Facebook so kindly reminds us of even these memories, just recently I recalled that one of those times driving up there, I threw in a little craft stash into my bag, and this wasn't something I normally ever would have done at that time. And it was just some thrift store fabric, some really dull scissors, and some elastic, and that hand sewing kit that we all have buried in our house somewhere. And I had just been curious previously to try this dope hair accessory at the time that I had seen on a blog. And I now, seeing these two photos of me in the bathroom at the hospital, remember how stressful it was, but all I can really recall is this weird sense of calm that I had from just trying to recall the steps to make this really simple thing, being curious enough to try it, and how I really felt this weird sense of like, I'm gonna make it, this is gonna be okay. And it certainly did not save the situation, but it saved me to keep moving forward and beyond that situation as well. So, you guys, we know all of the ways that we can and should save the world, but we need to remember to save ourselves, so we can do that. Today, I give you permission to just start small, make the next thing that sparks your interest, have fun with it, because you never know where a popsicle stick craft will lead you. Thank you.